So good morning, everybody. I am here this morning to talk with you about the postdoctoral fellowships and specifically the 2023 PF call. So the main objectives of the postdoctoral fellowships are to foster excellence through the implementation of a research project, enhance the creative and innovative potential of researchers holding a PhD. It's to focus on the 3 I, so international, intersectoral, interdisciplinary mobility, and bridges and expose researchers to the academic sector. Now, this being a Marie Sklodowska-Curie action, it's a bottom-up program. So all scientific fields are possibly funded. We cover all scientific fields. Now, the activities for postdoctoral fellowships and the type of action. So it's a mono beneficiary. So it's one entity signing the grant agreement to support the postdoctoral research and the career of the researchers. And here we have 2 implementation modalities. One is European postdoctoral fellowships, and these are for researchers coming to Europe from any country or moving within Europe. And then we have the global postdoctoral fellowships, which takes place first outside Europe, and then with the return phase in Europe. I will come to that later to explain to you the details about these modalities. Now, in a postdoctoral fellowship project, there are 2 main things. There is the participating organization, and that is the legal entity. So in most cases, universities, but it can be any kind of legal entities located in the member states or associated countries. This entity will sign the contract with us. So they are legally binding by the grant agreement. And then, of course, we have the researchers, because each project is based on a researcher. For the sake of postdoctoral fellowship, the researcher can be of any nationality, with a little restriction on global fellowship, where they can be, of course, EU member states, associated country members, but also long-term residents. And I will come to that also later. The researcher must be in a possession of a PhD at the call deadline, or have successfully defended their doctoral thesis before the call deadline. And in this case, the successful defense must be unconditional. I remind you, this must be before the call deadline. Then we have a restriction on the what we call scientific age. So it's up to 8 years research experience after the PhD. And there we have also some exceptions foreseen. And I will come to that later and show you which are these exceptions. And then important rule is the mobility rule. And this rule basically is made for researchers not to have resided or had their main activity in the country of the institution for more than 12 months in the 36 months before call deadline. So this sentence is very complicated, but it clearly simply means that should you apply for, in this case, Belgium, should you apply for a postdoctoral fellowship with an institution in Belgium, if you are in Belgium for more than 12 months, the last 3 years, you would be ineligible to apply with an institution in Belgium. Now, the conditions of the postdoctoral fellowships. The duration of a project is typically from 12 to 24 months for a European fellowship. So it's minimum 12, maximum 24. And for global fellowships is from 24 to 36 months. And here for global, as I said before, we have an outgoing phase. And this outgoing phase is from 1 to 2 years maximum. And we have a mandatory return phase in Europe of 12 months. There are secondments possible during the projects, and they can take place anywhere in the world. Then there is also an optional additional placement, and this one must be in a non-academic institution, and that comes at the end of the project. And then also we have restrictions on resubmission, to the call, the 2023 call, for all proposals scoring less than 70% in the last call. Now, here's some more details about the eligibility. So the eligible researchers for European fellowships. So European fellowships, any researcher can apply. There is absolutely no restriction on nationality. The mobility rule is the one I explained just before. So the researcher cannot have resided or carry out her main activity in the country of the beneficiary for more than 12 months in the 3 years immediately prior to the call deadline. And then there is an eligibility on research experience, and that is maximum 8 years after the award of the PhD. However, we have planned some exception, and these are stated there. For instance, maternity leave. If you have been on maternity leave, by definition, the system will take out 18 months of the research experience. For paternity leave, it is the exact duration of the paternity leave that is taken into account. For those of you who have made research in a non-associated third country, if you're planning to come back to Europe, we will not consider this research in a third country as research experience. Of course, the compulsory national service has to be deducted. The time spent not working in research, because we talk about research experience. So let's have the case of someone who just went out of research for 2-3 years to work as a journalist, for instance. This period will not count towards the 8 years rule. And then we have also the long-term sick leave. Here in red, I remind again the rule about the doctoral degree, the award PhD. The doctoral degree should be obtained before the call deadline. And if not officially, at least the successful defense must be unconditional. And REA, the Research Executive Agency, might ask for supporting document if needed to basically support and justify these dates. Now we have the eligibility criteria for global fellowships. And here, they are the same research experience is the same with the same exceptions planned. We have here a difference with nationality. The nationality, any member from EU member state associate country is eligible, or a long-term resident. And long-term residence means 5 years, having stayed at least 5 years in a member state associated country during your life. And there, the mobility is calculated not on the beneficiary, but calculated for the partner organization in a third country. So let me be here more specific. Imagine you are in Belgium and you would like to apply for a global fellowship. So global fellowship is 1 to 2 years in a third country and then back to Belgium. The mobility rule will be calculated based on the US if you want to go to the US. So if you have been in the US for more than 12 months in the last 3 years, you would not be eligible to apply with a third partner organization in the US. I here remind you that I am available for any kind of question after the presentation, of course. The Q&A session is planned. Here, this slide shows you the difference between secondment and non-academic placement, because both are possible when applying. And a secondment, the duration of the secondment is a maximum a third of the durations project for European fellowship, and is maximum a third of the duration of the outgoing phase for global fellowship. For EF, they can take place anytime during the project duration, while for global, they can only take place during the outgoing phase. So they can take place anywhere in the world. They can be implemented in any sector. And then you see below the table, it's encoding in part A, description in part B1, part B2. This is basically when drafting the proposals. And this is important, and my presentation will be made available. This is important for you when drafting the proposal to know what to write where. I will not go here into details. We can discuss a bit later in my presentation. There is a part about how to draft the proposal. But basically, this is important when what to put where in terms of information. Now, this is secondments, but we have also non-academic placement. and non-academic placements are not secondments. They are up to maximum of 6 months duration, and they should always take place at the end of the fellowship, though it must be the last 6 months. But when I said that the duration of the fellowship is from, let's say, 12 to 24 months, we can add 6 months to that. The Commission will be ready to fund 6 more months, providing that these 6 extra months are within the non-academic sector. And this must be, of course, explained at the proposal level. So here you have the applicable contributions, what we will pay for the postdoctoral fellowships. There are 2 major branches, I would say, of contributions. These are the one for the recruited researchers and the one for the institutions. The amount that you see there are gross amounts. So it seems a lot. There are indeed a lot of money, but these are gross amounts. So this is before all kind of deduction from taxes, from social security. And this amount is actually the living allowance is also subject to a country correction coefficient. For Belgium, it's very easy. It's 100%. So it's exactly the same amount. But imagine, I imagine here, and today we have Belgian researchers who would like to basically apply for postdoctoral fellowship in Germany or in France or in the Netherlands. This amount will be different. It depends on the country correction coefficient of each country. Let me come back to this slide here. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention something. The research, training, and networking contribution. This is a monthly allowance that you see, which is given to the institutions. It is paid to the institution, but it is to be used by the institution for the implementation of the project. So this is to support the researcher in any research, training, and networking cost that the researcher may face. That can be traveling to a conference abroad, that can be buying material, that can be anything that is related to the project. We also have ERA fellowship, and these are for widening activities. So what are ERA fellowships? ERA fellowships are fellowships for countries with specific R&I performance available in the work program. And these countries that are mentioned, you can see them in the slide below. These are countries such as Bulgaria, Croatia, Cyprus, Czech Republic, Estonia, Greece, Hungary. So these countries basically may apply for an extra chance to be funded. So there is no separate application or evaluation. They simply apply for European fellowship. And they have a call-specific question asking them at the submission stage. So when the submission system detects that the beneficiary is in one of these countries, there will be automatically a call-specific question appearing, asking the applicant the authorization to and the willingness to participate to this call. And if the applicant ticks yes, if the project is not funded under European fellowship but has the score high enough, it will be transferred to this ERA fellowship call and therefore can be funded afterwards. Only proposals scoring over 70% can be considered. This is the funding threshold. You have here the 3 main and only evaluation criteria. These are excellence, impact, and quality and efficiency of the implementation. I will spare you today the time going through one by one of these sub-criteria. One thing is clear is that when you write a proposal, you will need to address each of these sub-criteria. They're extremely important, and basically they are the one upon which you will be evaluated, based on which you will be evaluated. There is, of course, we have supporting documents. Just before, Nadej mentioned as well that they have an NCP page with some supporting documents. We have guides for applicants. In the submission, in the call page, there are information about the submission, and there is a part B template, so a template of a proposal with all criteria and sub-criteria. These are detailed, and it's clearly explained what is expected under each sub-criteria. So I am taking this opportunity, but I will say it again in the future, read the documentation that is available, because all what is expected from you as an applicant is mentioned there. I also need to mention that there are weightings of criteria. So the excellence criteria weighs 50%, the impact 30%, and quality and efficiency of the implementation is 20%. In terms of planning, we are talking today about the 2023 call, which is open since the 12th of April. So that's very recent. It's opened 2 weeks ago. The call deadline is 13 September. Please mark this carefully, because I explained to you previously the eligibility criteria based on mobility, based on PhD award date. The 13th of September is the deadline, is the date upon which all these eligibility will count. The evaluation period is from October to January, and we are planning to launch the grant preparation. So basically the grant agreement preparation, that grant agreement signatures, with for projects starting from April 2024 to September 2025. In terms of budget, you have the European fellowships. I've explained to you what it was before. They have a budget of 221.40 million euros, and the global fellowship with a budget of 39.07 million euros, which means that for the 2023 call, we have a total budget of 260.47 million euros. I will provide you later with statistics about what does it mean in terms of project. How many projects can we fund with this? You will see it later. For the ERA fellowships, we also have an earmarked budget. So these are for projects not financed through EF with a second chance to be financed in the widening country. We have a budget of 8 million euros. So here are some of the novelties from 2023 call. And this is for people here present who have applied for 2022 call. You will see the difference. There is a clarity and the wording about the secondments. And for global fellowship, also the clarity about the 3 months, the first 3 months of the action that can be spent at the beneficiary and not in a third country organization. The successful PhD defense, must be unconditional and take place before the call deadline. We also have clarified that, making it more stricter. And from 2023, we will also allow less than 50% for part-time for medical reason. So the part-time is something that is acceptable when you are implementing a Marie Curie project, a PF project. It is not something that you mention at the proposal level. It is something, if your proposal is funded, that you will discuss with the project officer and request the part-time. The rule up until now is that you, as a researcher, must work minimum 50% of your time on the MSCA project. And that is a rule that we basically, well, we had to apply. This is a rule. But we had cases where people were requesting part-time for medical reasons, and sometimes very strong medical reasons. And thanks to this revision of the work program, we can now accept a part-time of less than 50% if duly justified. A main change this year as well is that for previous year, we were requesting in the proposal a letter of commitment from the associated partner hosting the non-academic placement. As I said, there is a possibility of a non-academic placement at the end of the project. Before 2023, we were requesting a letter of commitment. As from this call, no letter of commitment is required. The only letter of commitment required in an application would be the one for a global fellowship and would be the letter of commitment from the partner organization in a third country. So the organization that will host the researcher from 1 to 2 years in a third country. So we also have rules about resubmissions. I already touched upon this topic. I remind you that proposal with the same host organization and the same researcher submitted in the PF 2022 calls and having received a score less than 70% must not be resubmitted in this call. For global fellowship, it's the same researcher, the same organization, and the same partner organization in a third country. So if you are in this situation, you will need to wait for the 2024 call to be able to resubmit a proposal. If you do so and you still submit it, we will declare the proposal ineligible. We also have non-academic placement, and this is, I've already explained that to you before. If the placement does not meet the requirements, the proposal will be evaluated without taking into account this extra placement. Of course, this might affect the final score. And then we have a difference of secondment versus NAP. NAP is non-academic placement. And I invite you, should you wish to submit a proposal, to clearly and carefully read the guidance material and the guide for applicants, because the way this secondment or non-academic placement must be explained and must be detailed in the proposal is not the same. So we have clarified that because we have seen many mistakes in the past. So now in terms of statistics and numbers. So I will show you the statistics for the 2022 calls. For the 2022 calls, we have received 7,044 proposals, 6,334 European fellowship, and 710 global fellowship. Now, in comparison to the previous call, which was 2021 call, you can see that we had a difference of more or less 15%. We have received 15% less proposals in 2022 than in 2021. So the number of eligible proposals, and now for European fellowship, you see there, this is quite interesting, this table, because you see by scientific panel, the number of eligible proposals and the number retained for funding, which gives you an indication of the success rate by panel. And as you can see, it varies from 16.9% up to a bit more than 18%. So these are the success rate for the 2022 for European fellowship. Oops, sorry. Now for global fellowship, you will notice that the success rate is slightly higher, from 18 to 27% in the ECHO panel. Bear in mind that in ECHO panel, we have received only 11 proposals and 3 were funded. This table is what we call the percentile table, and it's I will explain you how to read it. You have by column, you have basically the ranking list, and what we call ranking list is by scientific panel. So you have EF, which European fellowship, up to the middle of the table, and then GF, global fellowship, by panel. If I take, for instance, the column in the middle of the table, which is EF SOC, you see the score. So the first column is the score. You see it's 100. And for GF SOC, we have 1.15%, which means that 1.15% of the proposals submitted for EF SOC have a score of 100. If I go to 99, 2.02% of the proposal of EF SOC have a score of 99 and above. So the percentage will increase up, you go down. This is the score. Proposal have scored this score or above. This is how to read this table. And that gives an indication to applicants on where more or less is the funding threshold. And that is, you see that in green. So the score to attain more or less to have the funding threshold. This is for 2022. So here is the success rate per country. And I'm quite happy to announce, because we are here in Belgium and for the Belgian NCP, that Belgium is doing quite good in terms of postdoctoral fellowship, at least for the 2022 call, because you could see there how Belgium it is. You can see that Belgium has, and when I say Belgium, I mean entity located in Belgium, not Belgian researchers, had submitted 293 eligible proposals, out of which 54 were funded. So, and you could compare to various the countries, the various success rates by country. One interesting figure as well is the scientific age. As I explained to you previously, the scientific age must be from 0 to 8 maximum, 8 years of scientific age. And you see here the number of proposals submitted by scientific age and funded by scientific age. But what is, I think, quite appealing in this table is that you see that the success rate is higher than the average success rate for researchers from 0 to 4 years of scientific age. And then it drops, it goes below the red line, which is the average success rate for the call. So you can see that the researchers having 5, 6, and 7, and 8 scientific age of years of age, pardon, are below this average success rate. I cannot, from that, it's difficult to deduct a global trend. This is only for one call, obviously. So this, let me just understand. Oops, sorry. I was here. So this is the same one, but for global fellowships. So before it was European fellowship, now you see for global fellowship. And the trend is the same in terms of scientific age as well. Now for ERA fellowship, just a quick one slide to provide you with the results. There were 331 proposals considered admissible and eligible for the ERA 2022 call. And the comparison to 2021 is that we also received less in 2022 than in 2021, but not as less as the PF and EF, because EF and GF, I showed you before, it was a difference of 15%. Here, the difference is about 6%. Now, how to apply? So I will briefly go through the application process. You have all calls are published under the funding and tender portal. So you must submit the application through this portal. There are two parts to be filled in when you apply, sorry. This is the part A, which is a structured data, basically administrative data that you will need to give concerning the researcher, concerning the beneficiary, the host organization, concerning the partner organization in a third country for global fellowship, also for the organization hosting the non-academic placement. And then we have the descriptive part, the narrative part of the proposal. And this is the part that tackles the 3 evaluation criteria. And for this part, we have a maximum of 10 pages. So the part A, which is the administrative part, there is, so everything should be done through the system, through a submission wizard. There, as I said, we will ask the researcher information, the PhD award date, the residence and activity table. So you will need to explain your mobility, which country you were at least the last 5 years. There is also there a table for the extension of the 8 years rule. So you will write your scientific based on the PhD award date. If it is more than 8 years before the call deadline, then a pop-up will appear, and then you will be able to justify and to request exceptions to these 8 years. You will need to put information on the beneficiary and information about the budget. The information about the budget is calculated automatically based on the country correction coefficient of the countries involved, and based as well on the family allowance if the researcher is eligible for family allowance. Now, on the top right of the slide, you will see that I have mentioned a guide on common mistakes in MSCA PF proposal submission has been prepared. It's extremely useful. It's basically, I invite you to read this guide. It's available in the Marie Curie website, and it's extremely well done. It really gives you and explains you the step-by-step what to do in order to avoid mistakes. And that is based on experience that we faced and comments we received from applicants. For the part B, so part B, I remind to you, is the narrative part. We have two part Bs. The first one is the 10-page limit one, the one that covers all eligibility criteria. So a cover page, table of content, and so on will count towards the page limit. So we strictly advise you not to put cover page, not to put the table of contents, because you will lose. This is included in the 10-page. What is after 10-page will not be visible for the experts. So if your proposal is more than 10-page, you will lose the information that is above. So here we say the part B1 should start with excellence. So you don't lose time with any more tables or anything before. Then the part B2, for the part B2, there is no restrictions in terms of pages. And there you will need to explain and give information about the participating organizations. You will provide the CV of the researcher, the letter of commitment only for global fellowship, if needed, if a global fellowship, of course, and information about ethics and security. This slide is to show you some more resources and guidance. It has been already explained before by Nadej. I think it will be explained afterwards, but these are the guidance that we have. And it starts by the first one, which is a guide for applicants, which I think is the mandatory document to read before submitting a proposal for this form. And then here you have the links to the website I gave you. I will finish my presentation only with a few slides about statistics for Belgium. I think it's interesting for everyone here to see how Belgium is performing and what are the figures for Belgium, basically. The first one here being the number of grants at Belgian host for Horizon 2020. So Horizon 2020 is the previous framework program. It was running from 2014 to 2020. And here you see the numbers of, basically you have here the number of grants managed by Belgian hosts. And you can see, for instance, for standard fellowship, which is now called European fellowship, it went quite high. So it went better and better by the years. And we had also before some special modality panels, society and enterprise, reintegration panel, career restart panels, which do not exist anymore. But here as well, Belgium had some of these grants. Now, the same slide, but for Horizon Europe. So we only have 2 years of data. And but you can see, for instance, that during the first year, 2021, there were 7 global fellowships awarded to Belgian entities. In 2022, it was less; it's 4. But for European fellowship, the rise is quite impressive, because it's from 40 to 50. So you will really see an increase in terms of grants received by Belgian hosts. So here you have a statistics on the success rate of Belgian hosts. And in this slide, by call for Horizon 2020, so from 2014 to 2020, you see the number of proposals submitted by Belgian entities and the number of grants, and so basically a number of successful proposals. And you could see that for the Belgian success rate being in green, you could see that except for the beginning of the framework program, so 14-15, after that, Belgium was most of the time above the overall success rate for the call. So Belgium was performing quite well. Here we have the same data, but only for 2 years, 21-22, and you see the number of proposals submitted and the number of grants funded, and you see that it went higher. It went for around 12-13% to 18-19%. Now, in terms of scientific areas, scientific panels, as we call them, these are the statistics on the Belgian participation in Horizon 2020. So you see here, what is the percentage of funded proposal by scientific panels? And we can see, for instance, here that in Belgium, the 2 main panels are social science and humanities and life sciences. And that more or less corresponds to the all grants, the comparison of the entire program. And that is the same for now Horizon Europe. And there you see for Horizon Europe, so it's only 2 calls, you see that 36%, so more than 1 out of 3, project is in the social science and humanities field. And you also see that there is nothing, 0% in mathematics. So we do not have any funded projects on mathematics. So this slide here is not about Belgian hosts, but it's about Belgian nationals, so Belgian researchers. And you see there the number of, in blue, the number of proposals submitted and the number of proposals funded for Belgian nationals. And you can also see that the success rate for Belgian national has always been higher throughout Horizon 2020 than the overall success rate for the call. So Belgian nationals were always better than the average success rate, with a peak of like a 25% success rate in 2018. You see the same slide now for Horizon Europe, the last two calls. And again, you see that the success rate for Belgian national is above the overall success rate for the calls. This was my last slide. I would like to thank you very much. Dankjewel. Merci beaucoup. And I am available for any questions you may have.